hear about tonight. We will have Senator Irene Aguilar and her Republican opponent, Roger Logan. And let me just tell you that Rick Schutz, who's a member of our board, has put together some maps of the district. This district, which is Senate District 32, and of our new House district, which is District 2. And for a lot of us, it's hard to figure out, where you are as the redistricting occurs. Senator Aguilar was kind enough to give me some dimensions of the new Senate District 32. I-25 on the east, Sheridan Boulevard on the west, Hamden on the south, and then kind of dogleg at the top, which includes Mississippi, 8th Avenue, Yale, kind of around. So that gives you a sense of it. The candidate for the House District 2 is Mark Ferrandino, and it didn't work out that he was here. Senator Aguilar asked to come to one of our meetings. We were delighted. We asked Roger Logan, who's her opponent, to come. So we didn't figure Mr. Ferrandino into this. The other two issues that we will have tonight are ones that you've been hearing about. One of them is the Tabor Override Amendment by the City and County of Denver. We have people speaking for and against that. And also the Denver Public Schools bond issue and mill levy increase, people speaking for and against. And then Common Cause has a measure on the ballot that we have a gentleman, Jeff Hart, is going to talk about that. We're going to ask our speakers 5 minutes each and then a maximum of 10 minutes for questions. They can go less. We want you to get out of here at a reasonable time. So let me introduce Senator Aguilar. Has held this post since December of 2010. She was appointed to the post when Chris Romer resigned. She is a practicing physician. She is on the staff of the West Side Family Health Center, has been there since 1989. Mr. Logan is a resident, obviously, of this district. He is her Republican opponent. He's a businessman who's had an experience in lots of different facets of business. So we will begin. Senator Aguilar.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here tonight and to see you all again. I had the privilege of sitting in on your meeting last month and hearing about how great your property values are doing, which is good news. And I need to find out what happened with Sushi Den in that second floor. But anyway, I want to let you know that I've had the privilege of representing you down at the state capitol for the last 2 years. A lot of times when I meet people, they'll say, how did you go from being a doctor to being a senator? And what I like to say is that as I was sitting in the patient's office writing prescriptions, I realized that a lot of the problems that they had were not solvable by me with just a prescription and a medication. And a lot of them had to do with issues in our social safety net and in our social system in general. One of the things I like to say, and it pleases some people and annoys some people, but I truly believe that access to health care is a basic human right, and that it's somewhat embarrassing that the richest country in the world doesn't guarantee that access for its population. And it's also fiscally irresponsible because as a doctor in our safety net, I see people who have diseases that could have been prevented coming in with end stages of those diseases, and what happens is after they destitute themselves, we give them Medicaid, or after they damage an organ like their kidneys, we give them Medicare. So the truth of the matter is we pay for their health care anyway, and I feel like we need to look at how can we redesign this in a way, and health care is not a partisan issue, how can we redesign this in a way that where we give everybody access to the basic health care that they need so that hopefully we're increasing their productivity, increasing their ability to support themselves, and not paying for things in the back end. The way in which I got to the legislature is that I have a daughter who's about to be 18 who's pretty significantly disabled. She has cerebral palsy and cortical visual blindness and developmental disabilities. And after my mother died in 2005, I thought, I should find out what the safety net is like in our society for people like my daughter who can't provide for themselves. She has 2 siblings, and of course, being Hispanic, I expect them to take up the burden if it's there, but I wanted to find out what the safety net was like and ended up being part of the Colorado Developmental Disabilities Council, which advocates for people of all types of disabilities to have an ordinary life in any way that they can. And it's turned out that that's a good segue with being interested in healthcare, because one of the things that's happening in Colorado and across the nation is that the baby boomers are aging. and we're expected to have more and more of an over 65 population in the next 20 years. And one of the issues I'm engaged in with the legislature is working out how do we make long-term care work for people in our society? How can we keep people living in their homes for as long as possible? And when people come to need the safety net, how can we be sure it's there to provide for them? And so I serve on the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, and I'm on the Community Living Advisory Group, which is an executive appointment by the governor to look at long-term care in our state in the future and how we can redesign it and make it less of a medical model and more of a community model for our state. The final thing I want to say is that I am the first one in my family to go to college and then go on to get a medical degree. And I know firsthand how a good education can change your life. And so although the legislature doesn't directly supervise Denver Public Schools, I am working at getting myself at the table in those conversations, because I think if we look at helping our children become productive members of our society, it starts with a good education. I'm one of those people who does not believe that everyone needs to go to college, but we need them to be educated enough and learn a trade or something with which they can support themselves in the future. And I'm working on trying to change that trajectory for more children in Denver Public Schools. I've had the privilege of touring West Denver Preparatory Academy, and they're doing a great job there at getting kids who are wanting to go to college, ready for college. And so that's an effort I want to continue to be involved in as well. So when people ask what I like to focus on, I say healthcare, disability issues, and education. I'd like to end by saying that I've appreciated again the opportunity to serve you. I have email and a cell phone number is on my card and information. I find that people actually don't call me inappropriately. People are really pretty good about knowing when they need help. And one of the wonderful parts about this job is, you know how you call and you get somebody on hold for 50 minutes and you never get an answer? I always get an answer. So when you're running into those problems, please feel free to call me. And if it's not something we control at the state level, I know people at the federal level and at the city level who can help as well. So thank you.
Mr. Logan.
My name is Roger Logan. I'm running for Senate District 32 in competition with Senator Aguilar. And I am running on the Republican ticket. I do not have any political experience. I'm just a working class guy from Ohio originally, little farm boy actually. Still drive a pickup truck, you probably saw out front. I still carry a pocket knife every day. Anyway, growing up I learned a lot about faith, family, and community. Growing up a Methodist, and my dad actually preached at the pulpit a little bit when the pastor was gone, and that was quite interesting to hear my dad preach on Sundays. Anyway, Colorado. I've been in Colorado for 30 years. I moved here in 1979. I've been living in Denver now for 5 years. Married a beautiful young woman not just too long ago, 4 years ago. Live up here in Wash Park. And as I said, I have no political experience to fall back on. You have no record to look up anywhere about Roger Logan. However, I believe the country is getting into some serious trouble. So it's time for a working class guy to get involved. So here I am. I thought the state senate would be a good place to start. Learning a lot here over the past few months and running for office. Let me tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from as far as my philosophies and my beliefs. I believe that Colorado citizens are taxed enough already. And in the way to grow government, or excuse me, not to grow government, I am for a fiscal, responsible government. I don't believe that we need to be raising taxes on the citizens of Colorado to spend more money. If we need more money in the tax base, we can do that with a flourishing economy. Jobs are the lifeblood of any economy. And we can make Colorado a golden state again. I don't think there's anybody in here that would disagree with me that Colorado is one of the most beautiful places to live. If we promote this state right, why can't we get large business, big corporations to come here? Entrepreneurs to start more businesses. Let's get this state right as far as growing the economy and jobs. And then the tax revenue will go up for some of the things that people want to spend money on. As far as health care goes, it's a very important subject. I believe that the state ought to have a great safety net for those who can't provide for themselves. However, I'm not for a single-payer, government-run system. The free market can do better than the government. I don't know anybody that can name me one government program, especially on the federal level, that has run well. So I'm not ready to hand over a large part of our economy to a government, add another layer of bureaucracy. It's just going to cost money. Know a little bit about healthcare myself. Haven't really talked about this in the past, but 4 years ago I had a serious accident, banged my head on the ground pretty hard, knocked all the hearing out of this ear along with the 7th and 8th nerve. Spent 11 days in intensive care. Bill was pretty large. The helicopter ride was $12,000 in itself. I appreciate the physicians, the ENTs, and the surgeons and everybody that worked on me, because you know what? Broke my back, 4 ribs, my collarbone, busted my head, cracked the skull. Brain fluid leaking out my ear out on the ground. I'm walking and talking today and running for office. Does that mean I have 2 minutes left? Nobody told me what the hand signals are. Okay, no problem, no problem. I'll wrap it up then because I don't want to take too much time. Jobs. It's time for citizens to take the government back. I'm not from an establishment, whether it be from either side. Roger Logan, my website's rogerlogan.com, running for State Senate, District 32. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you having me. Thanks for asking.
I'm sure there's some questions. Who'd like to start?
I've got one. Roger, you would like to bring big business in? What incentives do you think you will offer to those big businesses to bring them in, and where is that incentive money going to come from?
Incentive money to bring businesses back to Colorado, or not back to Colorado, new business and that kind of thing. Right now, the actual tax rate that is businesses pay is not overly exorbitant. However, the personal property tax, the property tax they pay on inventory, equipment, and all that kind of thing is pretty big, along with some of the onerous regulations that are out there. And I think we need to look at how much we are charging businesses in the personal property tax area and how soon they can write all that stuff off and make it more viable to invest money not only in jobs but equipment and that kind of thing. Because for a company to go out and spend $100,000 on a piece of manufacturing equipment, it's quite expensive for them to maintain that here in Colorado. And if we change those laws a little bit, or regulation and taxes, and we bring those jobs here, they will employ more people, because every CNC machine, computer-controlled machine that's sitting in some factory someplace needs a programmer to run it. So not only does somebody get hired to run that machine, but also that machine gets purchased from somebody. So it's, you know, some people think that the trickle-down effect doesn't work, but it does. It truly does. I mean, this is the greatest, it is the greatest country in the world. we have come a long way in 200 plus years. And I feel like that government sometimes is killing the goose that laid the golden egg. We've got to stop that. And that's what I'm to bring common sense and civility along with integrity to government.
Senator Aguilar, do you want to respond?
You know, Governor Hickenlooper's done a great job of marketing our state, and I think our natural beauty has really helped. And he's also trying to market it based on the fact that we have a pretty highly educated workforce, even though we've imported a lot of that, and we want to change that to have a better workforce in terms of where our children come in. And so I don't know that we need much to attract businesses here other than being sure we improve our educational system and that we continue to preserve our outdoors, because really they're a huge economic driver for us and are what attracts a lot of people to live here. I know that's part of why my husband wanted us to stay and live in Colorado. So I think we need to be protective of our environment and be sure we keep our schools great.
Good. More questions?
In the last legislative session, there was a lot of news about the civil unions bill, and so I'm wondering if each of you could speak to your positions on marriage as it pertains to gay and lesbian couples, marriage equality. If you were elected, what would you do as a member of the Senate, and how would you vote as it pertains to those issues?
It doesn't matter. I mean, whatever you say, you're not going to change my opinion. I'm a very honest guy, so I'm going to lay it out like I think. First of all, I would talk to my constituents quite a bit around that, because you are the ones who are electing me, and I have to be accountable to you. Now, as far as a personal opinion in regards to that matter, I believe that government should not be in anybody's bedroom. Okay? Government is about contracts. If two people want to have a contract together, a civil union, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And I think the state can recognize that, or should recognize that. Now, do I want to give the activists, and I'll use that word, and he's filming me, so I do not want to give the gay rights activists any position to attack the church and the definition of marriage. They can have civil unions, is fine. I'm okay with that. I would vote for that. But we're not going to go down, I don't want to go down the road of changing the whole definition of marriage and that kind of thing.
Senator Aguilar?
Thank you. I have supported civil unions the last 2 years that it came forward, and I do anticipate supporting it in the future. And I think we will finally see it pass in the 2013 legislative session. A poll has been done of Colorado voters, and actually 73% of our voters support civil unions. And so I think its time has more than come in the state of Colorado. Personally, I would agree with Mr. Logan that it's not our job to tell churches what to do, but I do think that right now in our Constitution, marriage is defined as being between a man and a woman, and I think that might be unconstitutional on a federal level, and I would be supportive of an effort to get that out of our state constitution.
Good. Another question? In the back?
Yeah. I would like to know where each of you stands on the issue of climate change, and what you could do specifically locally to limit the amount of carbon that we put in the atmosphere.
Senator Aguilar, you want to go first?
So I do believe that climate change exists, and I do believe that the people contribute to that, and a lot of it is related to CO2. We are looking at, one of the issues that's been brought up actually is that methane is a stronger contaminant to the air and a larger contributor to worsening global climate change than CO2 is, and we are talking about whether we can do some things to mitigate methane release into our environment. And I think Senator Gail Schwartz in the Senate from the Western Slope has been a leader in this area and is looking at trying to find some way in which to regulate methane release and provide incentives for companies to recapture that and utilize that for energy to help with climate change. There's been discussion as well about whether we increase our renewable energy requirements from our companies. And for the large companies, that wouldn't be as big an issue. Unfortunately, a lot of our rural people in our rural parts of our state get their energy from cooperatives, and it would be more of an economic burden on them. So I'm not sure that's going to be viable to look at increasing our renewable energy requirements of our companies, other than trying to make it more economically beneficial for them to do that. But I don't know that we are at a point where we can require that of people now.
Mr. Logan.
Climate change. I don't know that, I'm a Republican. I've been a registered Republican since I was 18. I am not for dirty water and dirty air and unclean air. I want to breathe clean air and I want to drink clean water. I like taking the spigot here in Denver and drinking the water right out of the spigot. I do it all the time. However, I believe that climate change is a cyclical thing. If you look at the science on both sides, I'm not sure that whatever we're doing is affecting it as much as some believe that it is. Now, as far as green energy and all that all that stuff, I believe that we need to invest in that to some degree, because at some point in time we're going to find a viable way to make some of that work. However, I believe that the oil and gas industry needs to exist and keep going. I mean, Colorado, if you look at Weld County right now, they're thriving. And it's due to the oil and gas industry, a main player. Now, I'm not saying we can drill a bunch of oil wells in Denver County where we're highly populated. But I've looked at the fracking thing. I've looked at the CO2 emissions. I don't believe it's as big a deal as some people may think. But however, we need to keep an eye on it. Now, as far as the methane goes, I'll be honest with you. I've heard some talk about that, but I haven't looked into it at all. And I know the dairy farmers will be up in arms about trying to control some of that. Anyway.
All right. How about another question? Sir.
Senator Aguilar, you spoke a little bit about education and the value of education. But it seems to me one of the big problems is the crushing burden of student debt that those who choose to get a college education are invariably left with for years. It's one thing to educate somebody, it's another thing to make sure that they can go out and pay for it and are not burdened by it inordinately. What can the state do to help individual students not be burdened by this crushing student debt and yet still maintain all the higher educational choices that we have?
Thank you. So higher education is one of the areas in which we as a state, I think, rank 50th out of all 50 states. And in fact, it's cheaper for you to let your kids go to a state school in Wyoming than in a state school in Colorado because of our lack of funding for higher education. And this is all tied in with the basic problem we have in our budget in general, which is related to a number of things. It is the Tabor Amendment, it is the Gallagher Amendment, which limits property tax. Interestingly, it limits personal property tax, which is why our businesses are disproportionately burdened by property taxes. And then if you go onto the University of Denver's website, they recently did an analysis of our state and where we're expected to be in 20 years. So in the budget, we are required to fund K through 12 education at a certain level, and we are required to fund Medicaid at a certain level, and we do not have a mandatory requirement on funding higher education. And so as we entered the recession and income went down, the amounts of money left to fund higher education also went down dramatically, which is why we do such a poor job of funding it. The other thing that's been driving our revenue issue is not just the economy, but the fact that over time people have started doing more and more shopping online. And so when you shop online, state sale taxes are not collected unless that company is in Colorado. So every time you shop on Amazon, for example, we don't get sales tax revenue. And since so many people do that now, our sales tax revenue has dropped dramatically. More people spend money on services, and we don't tax services in Colorado. That would be things like hairdressers, massage therapists, manicurists. And so we have this basic imbalance where we have higher needs every year, partly from increased population and other things. This is part of why our roads aren't well maintained, and declining revenue as a result of the economic changes that are happening in our country, and the legislature has no ability to impact that. So I think we need to look as a state. At the DU study, they recommend both efficiencies and cutting spending and raising revenue, and I think we're going to need to address that at a state level. Just as some of you are aware, there are some legislators who have sued saying that Tabor is unconstitutional because the U.S. Constitution guarantees us a republic, and in a republic, your legislators have the ability to represent you and raise and levy taxes, and Tabor prevents the state legislature from doing that. So that question will be decided, 5-10 years, but that is out there right now. Is this even legal to have a state set up like ours? But because of Tabor in this, we don't have the revenue with which to support higher education. And so at this point in time, I think community colleges are still affordable, and it's great for kids to try and get their first 2 years at community college. And unfortunately, I'd have to say, also look at other states around us until we can adequately fund our higher education system again. I'm really concerned particularly about kids coming out with huge debt and not being able to find a job that pays them at a level with which they can afford to pay back that debt.
Mr. Logan?
Education. Starting with K-12, I believe that some of the things Douglas County is doing is going to show up at the K through 12, K through 12 level. And in a couple of years, I think we'll see that some of the changes that they're making over there can be implemented other places and work well. As far as higher education goes, I'm not sure that they're spending their money efficiently. And I'm not willing to throw a lot more money at something that, something that's not efficient. Education has creeped faster, as far as expense goes, has creeped faster than inflation 2-3-fold. Don't have the exact number right off the top of my head. Why is that? Why does it cost $30,000, $40,000 a year to go to college? I think where they're spending their money needs to be looked at before we start giving them a bunch more. And as far as Tabor goes, I do not want Colorado to head down the road of California or New York. Their budgets are out of control, spending more money than they have. Colorado needs to get a handle on that now. Thank you.
Another question? Somebody?
Time for about one more.
Okay, good. This gentleman here.
One of the issues last year that came up and was right at the end was the DREAM Act. Can you tell us how you feel about the DREAM Act? Do you know which act I'm talking about, Mr. Logan?
I don't.
It's the one where
Tuition equity.
leveling the tuition for young people who have gone to school here. Their parents brought them here.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. That one, I'll be honest with you, I'm totally undecided on, because there are some issues on I understand where both sides are coming from in that respect, and it's like, I can't fault the kids. There has to be something done with the immigration laws the way they are, because at 3 and 10, where if you don't do something in the first 6 months, you turn 18, you got to go away for 3 years, and then if you don't do something within I don't know the exact dates, but then you got to go back to your home country for 10 years, and if you're a child that came here when you were 3 or 4 years old, that's kind of tough.
Senator Edison, were you finished? I'm sorry.
No, Hugh, go ahead.
So I think we got to look at that front end before we can really classify what's going on there. And I just don't have a good answer right at this point because I'll be honest with you, I'm not that well informed on both sides of that issue. I'm a working class guy. I work hard for a living, and you know what? That takes 90% of my time. And I'm still working to make money while I'm doing this. And you know how that goes, right? Go ahead.
No, that's okay. So I did support tuition equity 2 years ago and this year as well. I agree with Mr. Logan that it just seems inhumane to ask children who've never lived as adults in the country to go back to that country and somehow try and make a living. I heard someone say the other day, asking them to go to a country when the U.S.'s flag is the only flag to which they've ever pledged allegiance. And so what's interesting is that Colorado is an outlier on this. There are a number of states who are predominantly Republican, like Utah and like Kansas and Texas, who do have tuition equity for their children already. And so I'm hopeful as well that this will move forward in Colorado and that the President's recent action on deferring action against children who've been here since a younger age will help lead to that becoming a reality in our state as well.
Good. We might have one brief question, or has everybody had their questions answered?
Maybe brief answers.
I think we're good. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to turn this over to my fellow board member, Rick Schutz, and he will introduce his panelists for the Denver Tabor override.